Okay, everyone. Welcome to our management panel. We're going to get started. So I want to first introduce myself. My name is Cassidy Shatford, and I will be the moderator for today's panel. This afternoon, we have some exceptional guests here who are here to speak to you about the fascinating world of business and business management. So we would like to begin by acknowledging and paying respect to the Indigenous people of the land on which we meet, the Mi'kmaq people. Mount St. Vincent University is built on unceded Mi'kmaq territory. We also pay respect to the knowledge embedded in the Aboriginal custodians of this land and to the elders past, present, and future. So before we get started, there's a couple of housekeeping items I just want to go over. So in case of an emergency, we ask everybody to please evacuate through the nearest door. So there's an exit in the back and to the front here. We ask if you can please stay seated throughout the whole panel. But if for some reason you do have, welcome, come on in. If for some reason you do have a personal emergency and need to exit, if you could please do so through the back door, so not to interrupt the panel, that would be great. As many of you know, this is a Learning Passport eligible event. So to keep things efficient, we've already passed out our surveys and we have some for people entering. So if you could fill out those surveys and have your activity pages filled out by the end, Miriam will give you your stamp on your way exiting the room. And we ask you all to please mute or turn off your cell phones. We have some panelists here who took times of their day, so if you could all try and be as respectful as possible and not use your phones while the panelists are talking. And we also have some time at the end for a Q&A period. We're going to allot 10 to 15 minutes for everybody to ask any questions that they do have. So if you have any questions, please hold them until the end, and there will be a chance to ask. Okay. So we are going to get started. The first question is, please briefly describe the organization you work for and your position. So we'll start at the end with Brian, and then we'll go.
Great. Well, welcome everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My role, I'm the Vice President of Operations for Killam Apartment Reit. It's about a $3.5 billion company that we operate 16,000 apartment units or apartments across Canada. We're from St. John's, Newfoundland, right through now to our latest purchase is in Victoria, BC. And my role specifically is to look after the infrastructure. So I look after keeping the existing infrastructure that we have in top shape, and I do so. I guess I look after probably we spend about $73 million a year on just upgrading. So that's like roofs, windows, redoing buildings, floors, those types of things, updating apartments inside. So that's the organization that I work with and the role that I do.
Hi, my name is Dianne, and I'm here under the umbrella of my own company called Planet Dianne, which is event management and project coordination. My background is in hotel management, so after 20-something years managing hotels through operations and sales and marketing, I decided to start my own company, which I've wanted to do my whole life. So with that in mind, I did start my company and develop my own website. But currently, 5 years ago, I took on a position managing a cooking school for Loblaws. It is one of the largest cooking schools in Atlantic Canada. And this was something new to me. It was challenging. And I decided to take it as a one-year gig. 5 years later, what I can say is I've learned so much more. You're never too old to learn. I've learned a lot about food, food safety, and I get to manage some fabulous gourmet chefs and wonderful assistants, one of them being one of the moderators here today. So I'm very pleased to be here and share my experience in managing teams and what I've learned and certainly what I keep learning. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Dani Bercy. I work at Scotiabank Centre, formerly Halifax Metro Centre. We are considered the largest sports and entertainment facility in Atlantic Canada. We host somewhere around 400,000 people a year with 115, 120 events, a combination of sporting events, concerts. Recently, we held a large Loblaw conference, actually. So my role is production manager. So specifically, I handle all things video in the building. So video production on the new Jumbotron screen. And we have a network of almost 80 flat screens throughout the building that showcase what's called our program production feed, and then some advertising and sponsorship elements. I have a team of around 15 event production staff who are in the industry, whether they're at a news network or freelance videographers. They come work for me on sporting event days, Mooseheads games, Halifax Hurricanes basketball game, of which we have a game tonight, and most recently lacrosse. That's it.
Thanks, Dan. My name's Nathan Gee. I'm a structural engineer with Stantec Consulting Engineers. Our office is just located in Burnside. Part of a larger conglomerate. There's 22,000 employees throughout North America, Europe, various parts of the world. We have 400 locations, office locations around the world. My role as a structural engineer, as far as my trade is, but I've been with the company for 20 years and I've developed as a project manager and a team leader. I supervise staff of 14 people. 4 of them are located in Newfoundland and 10 are located here. Our region of work is basically Atlantic Canada. We work on a variety of different projects. In our building in Dartmouth, we have geotechnical engineering, structural, mechanical, electrical, architectural, and some environmental scientists as well too. So like I said, we typically work on projects in the region, but we've worked in projects all over North America as well too. So.
Okay. Push your button. Perfect. Okay, thank you. So now that everyone's introduced, we'll start with the questions. So how has your education and experience led you to your current position? So this time we'll start with Dianne. You're welcome.
Okay, well, my education has been in business administration and marketing, and I was working for provincial government. I was an assistant to a minister of tourism when I was living in Newfoundland. It was a great experience. It was during the Cabot 500 year. I don't know if anyone remembers that,
Yeah.
but it was a fantastic event held nationally, internationally, and I found I enjoy working in government, but I came across the hotel industry. I think I was just turned 30, and I saw some excitement in sales. I really liked being in front of people. I applied on a position, and much to my surprise, I got the position. 20-something years later, I went from being in sales to director of sales to operations. It's been a huge experience. I think my education brought me to that. But I also commend the company that I did work for educating us while we were growing within the company. When I got into operations, it was a whole new ball game. So that was a huge learning curve for me. I've always been in front of people. You know, sales can be fun. Marketing was very exciting. And to get to work with a team of people who are out in the field, I like being in front of people. So I decided to challenge myself by going into operations. And I was very blessed to be given that opportunity. And let's just say my eyes were wide open. I learned a lot about myself. There are many quadrants to managing a hotel, from management to financial to human resources to maintenance. And I thought, okay, all 3 I think I'm great at. What I thought was great at, because I'm a people person, was human resources. Finance scared me. I wasn't into accounting, I hated math, but I learned it. What I thought I was better at was my most challenging, was human resources. So I then realized I need to go back and re-educate myself. I felt like I had the experience, but I needed the tools to learn more. So luckily within the company, I was given the opportunity to take courses in human resource essentials, and that kind of led me to reaching a point after 20-something years in the industry. I thought, okay, I have a lot of things that I've learned. I'd like to now implement them into my own company. And I keep saying that I'm a small-time company, but I did I did get some clients through this company, filled out federal government proposals to get funding to help a farmer in Gore, Nova Scotia. So these experiences were really rewarding for me. And then I came across the position with Loblaws, with the cooking school. And I should point out, disclosure, I can't cook. The thing is, it was managing all aspects. So just because you can't do something doesn't mean you can't do something else. So through managing every aspect of this, through the financials, the projections, the hiring, the execution, sweeping floors, doing dishes, hey, we do it all. So that was, I said in my introduction of myself, something I thought I should try this for a year. Well, like I said, 5 years later, when you're having fun and it's a good thing, and we get paid to hang out, so I'm still there. So I think my education brought me to there, but also don't be afraid to challenge and try something new. You never know where it will take you.
And I do all the cooking, just so everyone knows.
So my story is a bit longer. Do you have 3 days? No. So I went to UNB/St. Thomas University. It's if you've never been to Fredericton in those schools, it's very similar to King's College and Dal. Both schools are on the same campus. I at a very young age had an aptitude to be involved at some capacity in film and TV production. I always wanted to do that. Initially it was in front of the camera acting, and then I realized I was terrible at acting. So then as the natural progression was to go behind the camera and sort of learn the intricacies of overall production. While at St. Thomas UNB, there was a gentleman by the name of Barry Cameron, who was a film studies professor, and I took a lot of courses under him. Wow, this is amazing. This is really what I want to do. Fast forward, after school, I got my first job as a production assistant on a TV show called Black Fly. It was shot in Hubbard's, Nova Scotia. If you don't know what a production assistant is, you're driving actors around, you're getting coffee for people, you're doing all those little things that everyone has to learn. You can't jump into a film or TV production and expect to run the show. Everyone, even Steven Spielberg, people like that, they've got to start somewhere. Not that I'm comparing myself to Steven Spielberg, but after that, I worked, 12 other shows, most of them TV pilots, a few movies of the week, 3 large motion pictures, and then I moved from production assistant into assistant directing, into location scouting, and then running locations on set. So fast forward again, I scouted a location for a TV commercial for Atlantic Blue Cross, and I get this weird call out of nowhere from this guy, and he was rambling, going, "Dani, we really need you to go to Atlanta to explore this facility." I'm like, slow down. So anyway, the long story short is the Halifax Metro Centre at the time had just got funding to get a Jumbotron screen. And we talked about the World Junior Hockey Championships back in 2002. The plan was to get a new Jumbotron, and they wanted someone to come manage the installation, hire the staff to run it. So essentially, I was recruited some way, somehow, and that's what I did. I left the production and went into another form of production, which is live sports. Very new to me, but a lot of what I learned through Barry Cameron at UNB and through those initial jobs as a production assistant, all kind of put together in a package and helped me kind of lead a team, and I've been there for 18 years. So I would say a combination of what I learned in a fine arts minor in film and what I learned on set in those early days. Man, oh man, it was very eye-opening. It made me believe. It led me to reaffirm the fact that I really wanted to be involved in production at some capacity, and now it's been 18 years. Yeah.
So my educational background, I studied in Maine for 4 or 5 years before I moved to Nova Scotia. It's where I grew up, and I spent some time there. I was always interested in engineering, science, and math. It came naturally to me. But when I graduated high school, I didn't think I had what it took to be an engineer or go through that process. So I jumped into an education program, spent a few years in that, and found that it just wasn't right for me. But everything I learned there, I still retain, and I use it today now. So I jumped into engineering, finished my structural engineering degree, started working for a local company here. I've been with them for 20 years. As my career has developed, I've moved into a project manager's role. I now draw back on my education skills that I learned on my first degree, for the simple fact that in our group in Dartmouth, we have over, actually Atlantic Canada, we have about 50 project managers. So it's my job to actually train the rest of the project managers within our group and make sure that they're following the rules and the procedures. So it's one of those things that, you start from one spot and you kind of end up in another, and, every skill that you learned along the way is going to help you at some point in time. So.
My education was, I took engineering. I took that at Hussey. And that time you went to Tons, which is now part of Dell, but it wasn't at the time. Took my engineering degree, and then I started working in healthcare. I worked in healthcare for 15 years, and it was the operational side, and I was doing much the same as getting the coffees and all those types of things, because you really did have to learn. And you started off with one or two departments, and each year it seemed that they added another department to you. So by the end of it, I think I probably had 15 operations and service departments, everything from porter escort, moving patients and packages around the hospital, to communications, telephone systems, all those types of things. And then I had the opportunity to commission the new Halifax Infirmary, which isn't new anymore, but it's on Summer Street in Roby there. So it was a huge project, and at that time we were just transitioning in Nova Scotia from individual healthcare institutions to Capital Health, and the stage was being set where what we did was that went from just a community hospital, the infirmary, to a tertiary care hospital. And so we had major renovation requirements to do at that. And so I was successful in being the director of engineering. We did a lot of good projects there. This hospital certainly is a spot where you end up in a situation where you're just trying to keep up with things, because it's a very busy, very active, 7-day a week, 24-hour. They don't stay home for snowstorms, none of that. And so you're in a situation where you learn from that. And to Dianne's point, the operations experience was you gain a lot of experience through that, and you learn from that. And it's not just your degree. I think your degree shows that you have the potential to learn things. And I think that what you do is you get out and then you start experiencing these situations, and you learn and you understand, and each time you take it a little bit further. So I worked in healthcare for 10 years. I then went on and worked for Bell Canada. On the real estate side, construction side, building facilities. I was there at the time that we were moving from to a private telco, from a monopoly, I guess. And what we were doing is we were sizing down all our facilities. So I had a great opportunity there to do construction and bring things together, sell off, $50-60 million worth of properties, and then put that back into the company. I worked there for 10 years, and then I came to the Mount St. Vincent University. I worked here for 12 years and finished up here as the Vice President Administration. I came over as the Director of Engineering, and then, my boss, 6 months in, she had a job offer at Capital Health, and I had the opportunity to compete for the Vice President's position here. And so I think what it does is that these things don't just happen. You have to work hard, you have to learn, and you have to have a plan. And if you're not happy with something, then what you have to do is you have to figure out, what's my plan to do something slightly different with the same organization or with a different organization, and really have a strategy on how you're going to get there. So I think as much as your education is important, it proves to you that you have the capacity to learn, and that when you get in the workplace, that's when you really start to understand. And if you love something, you will work day and night on it.
Okay, speaking of plans, our next question, what are your career goals? Are you doing what you had planned to do originally? So we'll start with you.
I would say I am doing what I sort of always wanted to do, and that is be involved with production. Now, those plans have diverted from film and TV and gone into live broadcasts and sports, and I have a love for sports, always have. But yes, I mean, I love going to work every day. It's very challenging. Making sure our production is, one of the better, and we've been recognized actually last 2 years as being one of the better top 100 venues in the world, and I'm really proud of that. And our video production is certainly up there as well. So I'm very passionate about that. And in terms of what my goals are, my goal is to every day, every week, every game, every event is to get a little bit better, and we try to introduce one new element per game. So as an example, for a Halifax Mooseheads game, we may get the players to sit down into a green room and shoot them talking about their favorite food, getting them to compete at ping pong or something new. So we'll have a new feature every game. And the biggest thing is try to avoid that creative burnout and make sure we don't keep with the status quo and not introduce new elements each game, because the fans will get tired of the same old thing, and we're very passionate about making the best production we can do. And another goal of mine is to become sort of a full-service in-house agency of sorts. So we're a go-to resource for clients to come and get their production needs done through us internally. So a lot of clients we have will have, larger clients will have agencies working for them, creating their commercials and their spots that we use in our Jumbotron and our video elements. But some of our partners don't have that ability. So what we're toying with doing is creating that production environment, that in-house agency kind of feel internally, and offering those services to our clients that don't otherwise have the opportunity to work with an agency. So, yeah.
So for my career goals, I feel like I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. I mean, I have a love of math, science. I'm interested in learning aspects of all kinds of different things. I learn something new every day. As far as, am I doing what I had planned to do? Engineering is a dynamic industry. I mean, it's changing all the time. The interaction with people is changing all the time. The climate is changing all the time. Some of the projects we're working on now is dealing with climate change and how to protect people's assets, and let them deal with, what's coming in the future. Through engineering, you get your degree, but as Brian mentioned earlier, it just shows that you can learn. And a company hires you on, and you just do everything you can to learn as much as you can. There's been so many different opportunities that have come up just from working with the company that I do work on. I've had opportunities to work on oil rigs, so they fly you out in a helicopter, and you're in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean, and you're wondering, the helicopter's landing on this. I hope they know what they're doing when they take you there. I've worked on projects all over North America, and these are all things that, you look back a year before, you didn't think you were going to work on these, but the opportunity comes up, and you always say yes. You say, I would love to. And I can't wait to see what happens next year and the following years. So,
I'm not sure I would predicted that I'd be where I am today when I graduated, but I knew that I really enjoyed helping people, and I really enjoyed figuring things out. And so I think that was my combination. I always tried to see that there was a way to do things better, or many times what you need to do better. The secret there is finding the way to do it better, so that I call them ricochets, so that you don't continue to have ricochets. And what that is that something gets screwed up, and then it bounces back, and it comes back, and it comes back. Let's fix the system somehow. Let's figure out a way so that those things don't come back to us every day. And let's figure out how much time, money, and effort we're going to save, and how much we can invest ourselves in other issues and make our production or make our solutions better overall for our customer. So I would say, from that side, I think that, I was fortunate I think many of us feel that, as you go through your career and you have the opportunity to be exposed to new things, that's a great opportunity. For me, additional goals really is to volunteer. I've been quite involved with the YMCA in Halifax and have been for the last 10 or 12 years. One of the big projects that I've worked on is the construction of the new Y in Halifax on South Park Street. And, giving back to your community and understanding that there are better things for your community and being proud of your community. So I think from my side, my goals are to continue to do that. Certainly with my job, I think I'm very excited about the role I have. There's lots of operational issues to solve with a $3.5 billion company. We have 600 employees, and there's always issues. And to Diane's point, HR issues are a big demand, I guess, on your time. So, but I'd say my goals now are to continue to try and provide and give back to my community.
So, like Brian, did I see myself in a cooking school? No, I didn't, but to me it was a challenge. I kind of want to focus on our passion, your passion throughout life. Throughout my journey, my diverse work experience, and Dani reminded me I actually worked on a musical production drum here locally, and maybe I'll work for your agency someday. But I want to talk about the passion, and Brian touched on it with community. When I moved here to Halifax nearly 20 years ago, I was always a volunteer. I think it is very important to find something that connects you with your community. Partnerships. When I talk about the passion, when I came here, I got involved with a youth organization called the Youth Voices of Nova Scotia. So nearly 20 years ago, and these were all youth at risk. And again, I learned so much. I felt like, wow, my life was very different from these young youth. So I learned a lot from them and about their challenges. So I'm proud to say 20 years later, I just became vice chair of this on the board. And we are having an event coming up in May celebrating 20 years of this organization. So that was my passion with youth, and that's where I see myself. I think my journey continues. I'm proud of what we've learned, and I think the message here from all of us is that we're still learning, and I think I still want to achieve something different. I see myself working with youth. I see myself as an executive director of an organization to be able to build partnerships and relationships and to be able to kind of give back and take everything I've learned to that position and to obviously get something back from it. So passion.
Awesome. Okay. So for our next question, can you tell us about the types of jobs that might be available for students considering a career with your company? So start with Nathan on the end.
Sure, thank you. As I mentioned, I work for Stantec. We're a very diverse company all over the world, so we have a tremendous amount of needs throughout the company at various levels. Dianne mentioned human resources. I mean, we have a need for that in our local office as well too. And at the end of the day, it's a business, so we need people with business mindsets to make business decisions for us. I have a technical background in structural engineering. I do not have a business background. I do not have a human resources background. But ultimately, as a team lead, project manager, I'm making business decisions every day that I'm not necessarily trained for. But you find a way because you've built on your sort of your life experience and whatnot. We have, there's always challenges with staff that they have personal things in their lives that they're going through. We need to help them. We need to train them for various things as well too. That's a human resource issue. So there's a tremendous amount of need for our company for those types of skills as well too. And I'll be the first to say I don't know all the answers, but I'm going to find the person who does and reach out to that person. So like I said, the way that the world is going and companies, multi-diversity, there's a tremendous need for people with all kinds of different skill sets that we can all draw upon. No one individual has the answer for everything, but collectively we can find the answers. So.
With Killam Apartment, certainly we have requirements for property managers. We have requirements for leasing managers, business analysts. Those are project managers. We're always, it seems that, the IT systems or the systems that we have in the organization are always upgrading and changing. I would say that that's probably one of the biggest challenges for you, is to always keeping up on those types of things. So from an employment side, I think that is, the organization has been growing. In the last 4 years, our stock value has doubled. It doesn't double because the company hasn't grown. Really, we're always looking for good people and folks that really want to dig in, understand, and learn. And based on that, there's opportunities that you move through the company. Our company has high diversity. 55% of our senior leadership team is female. 46% of our company overall female. We have, certainly right across the country. So we have lots of different teams across the country, and a team in Halifax, if your partner is relocating, there's always an opportunity to relocate to that city if we're in that. We're in 13 major cities or locations across Canada. So that's a nice feature. And but I would say that those are the areas: property management, financial and business analysts, and leasing agents is where our big demand is.
As Brian said, human resources is certainly very key to any organization. I'm going to draw on my hotel experience. When working with that company, it was very rewarding. It was fun. You're thinking it's hospitality. You're selling your region. You're selling your area. So if you're interested in a position with hospitality or tourism, find what would excite you. What would be your passion within that industry? Remember, you're selling your province, you're selling you're selling fun for people, and human resources is one side of it. And I've had a lot of fun as a director of sales and marketing, and management was where I felt I really could be part of a team and to lead by example. So from a hotel perspective, there are many opportunities within the hotel industry. You can start anywhere. I've heard stories of hotel managers who started out as maintenance or started out in the restaurant. I love hearing stories from when someone who's been, started somewhere. And as Brian was saying earlier, you have to start somewhere. You learn along the way. So for the hospitality industry, very exciting. It keeps drawing me back under my Planet Dianne management company. My old management company keeps calling me to do contract work. I did go north a couple of years ago for a 6-month contract. 2 hotels went into receivership, and he said, Dianne, we need someone to go north and clean it up. So I was like, okay. He said, it'll be easy. There's hardly any staff there. There's no business. Well, I got north, 2 hotels. So for receivership, for those who don't know, basically the owners don't pay the bills. So they're in trouble, and it gets taken over by PricewaterhouseCoopers in this case. So again, I continued to learn. I had an amazing staff. We were small, but we were mighty. But they were willing to do the work. So that's my point. Find somewhere where you can go in. It doesn't have to be, a lifelong career. Try something. Try something within that department, or try something within really any aspect. But I think human resources is very important. I've had a lot of experience from government to hospitality to production, and now being part of Loblaws. And it was an amazing convention, by the way. I actually got to hear Galen Weston speak, and he mostly focused on plastics, like how we need to change. And so it was very, empowering for us to be part of a 1,500 delegation to hear someone like that speak about his care for the environment. So it meant a lot. So find somewhere that you can plug in and get the experience. Thank you.
Yeah, so with Scotiabank Centre, there's all aspects of any regular business, and by that I mean a lot of similarities can be drawn upon with Stantec and Killam. There's a human resources component to it. There's a finance component. There's an HR. I mentioned HR. Business analysts. We have event managers, event engineers, sales, marketing communications. In fact, our senior director of marketing communications is an MSVU graduate. We're always looking for talented marketing communications people, finance, accounting backgrounds, sales people, event management, more on the operations side. And by that, I mean, we've got an event coming in. There's so many moving parts with an event, and you've got to have someone that will lead that team and bringing in equipment, moving out equipment, changing the building from hockey to a concert, from concert to a hockey. There's a lot of, like I said, moving parts. So we're always looking for talented people. And to Diane's point, sometimes it takes you getting in the door. It's a terrible cliche, but a really relevant one, I think that. I mean, a lot of you will have aspirations to come out and be a manager right away. Well, it's not really the way the world works. You probably are going to have to look at taking a job, and hopefully it's something that you're studying to do, like whether it's accounting or some sort of business designation. You're probably going to have to start at an entry level job, and then once you get that foot in the door, then who knows, right? You're gonna have opportunities, hopefully, to move around and climb that ladder, as they say. But certainly, we're always. I look at our marketing and communications department. We're putting out 3 to 5 emails a day, company-wide, about someone that's just been hired or someone that's moving from this department to another. There's so many opportunities with our company. So yeah, I mean, find something you're passionate about and try to monetize that into a career.
Okay, perfect. So for question 5, what do you see as key management skills needed to manage organizations today? So that can be things that have evolved throughout your career or just some general things.
I think that communications has a big part in problem solving. And I think if you can communicate and feel comfortable, and, many times it's like check your ego at the door kind of thing. You really want something to go well. You want to lead a team. You want that team to work with you. I think the biggest piece of that is the communications. And don't ever expect somebody to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. So I always say that if there's a problem and it's 2:00 in the morning, if I expect somebody else to come in, why don't I expect myself? So to the best of my ability, I always take those opportunities and work forward to that. Understanding something. Being there when a pipe breaks or when you have a power problem or any of those things on the operations side, for me, is an opportunity for you to understand another process. And when you understand that process, you understand how you can make that better, how you can prevent that from happening in the future, how you can stop impacting what it is, be it your hotel, your tenants, in our case, our tenants in our apartments. So I think, from my side, the key skills on the management side is communication, your respect for others, and your ability to problem solve. And don't get frustrated, don't get flustered, just kind of continue to dig at it. There is always a solution. Might not be the best solution, but the next time maybe you'll make that solution a little bit better. So I would say those are the areas where I have done well by. And those would be the ones that I would suggest to you. The other thing is use the information that you have at the time, and don't beat yourself up about decisions that you made a day later that you didn't have all the information or data on. Lots of people look back and then they get into this analysis paralysis, I call it. It slows down their decision making. If you mess up 2 decisions out of 10, that's not so bad. But if you analyze something to death and you're only making 4 decisions and you're screwing up 2, that's a totally different situation. So I would suggest that don't dwell on the ones that you didn't make the right decision on, or it was a decision that could have been better. fix it as best you can, and look at the next ones, because that's what you have to do. Your employer pays you to solve problems, communicate, be respectful to others, and I'd say that those are my three mantras as I would, look back and look forward.
Okay, I guess I'll talk about my own experience. I guess for me, being part of a team, whether it be in the hotel industry or, whatever I'm doing, I have to say motivation. We need to motivate each other more, and I think that leads to empowerment. There's nothing I like more if I go into a restaurant and I'm sitting at a restaurant and I don't like my food or something's wrong. I love it when I see a server make a decision to come back or say, you know what, I'm not charging you for that, or I'm going to give you a discount. To me, that speaks volumes about management. In other words, that person is able to make a decision without feeling any repercussions from it. So I think that's empowering. So I think motivating that, showing people that, and I guess what you were saying about, if you make a mistake, don't let it, be the end all of everything. Deal with it, be accountable. And I'd have to say, ending with recognition. It doesn't matter if you're a manager, you're the boss, you're the CEO. I think everybody likes to get recognized for what they do, and that then makes you feel better about what you're doing, whether you make the good decisions or bad decisions. I think these styles would be important. As a matter of fact, I'd like to do a little quick exercise, if I may, kind of get everybody moving, if you don't mind. I'd like for everybody just to kind of stay in your chair. I'm just going to walk you through it. I'd like for you to put your hands out. Shake about first. I'm going to do a quick little exercise, and I'll explain why. So, okay, keep your hands still. So can everybody close their eyes? Just bring yourself to a calm. So I'm going to get you to take your right hand, turn it over. Okay. So now focus on your left hand. Your four fingers have strings on them, and they're all tied to helium balloons. So just visualize that. In your right hand, you have a watermelon. Visualize these two things in your hands. Can you feel the watermelon? You feeling what's happening with your left hand? Feeling that watermelon in your right hand? Okay, without moving your hands, just open your eyes and see what's happening. Some people are way down here. Feeling the weight of that watermelon? So my point is about influencing a group of people. You can influence in a very calm way. I think it's sort of styles of leadership, whether you're a boss or a leader. I think that defines that you can express your views or express what you want done in a very calm way without being like a dictator. So I just kind of want to share that. And I've experienced that before. So thank you for letting me do that. So I think I'll end off with that. Thank you.
My hand was like almost hitting the table. Yeah. I've got some very simple pieces of advice, but I find them very profound. And does anyone watch the Golden Globes or any award shows? There was the one recently, Tom Hanks got an award for Lifetime Achievement, and it wasn't so much he was asked, he was outwardly giving advice to the audience on how he got to where he was when he got that award. And one of the biggest points he made, always be on time. It's a simple one, but it's very impactful, because when you get into the job, if you're late, it's very unprofessional, and if anything else, be earlier than on time. And it's a very, very, very easy one. I, for whatever reason, have been a freak show when it comes to time management, and have always been on time, always early, and I just can't hammer that home enough. Again, that's just one of them. The other one is, for me, is to be, empathetic, be, open to. I love to hear my staff's what's going on in their personal lives, and I'm very genuinely interested in what's going on. What do they do on the weekend? That sort of thing. It goes a long way when you're sort of making that connection, and it doesn't have to be with your staff or your mentors or whatever. It could be with anyone in the workplace. Be open to conversation. Be open to what's going on in their personal lives. That's one for sure that I try to preach to all people. Another big one is to prioritize. I'm a big list person. if you come across something in your morning that takes 2 minutes or less to do, don't put it off. Do it right away. And that could be responding to an email the night before, 2 a.m., getting a call about a broken thing. You may not be awake at 2 a.m., but you're awake at 7 a.m. And send that email off and say, great, okay, I've got people working on it. Don't put that stuff off, because the more you put off, the more you'll never get to it. And I find being responsive to communication is a big one too, to Brian's point. Being responsive is a huge asset. And that's answering texts, answering calls, returning emails, sending emails. So those are big ones too. And then if you're put into the position of management, try not to micromanage people. And if you don't know what I mean by that, try not to manage everybody around you. You cannot be all things to all people. It is impossible. So manage what you know, manage who you're supposed to manage and what you're supposed to manage, and stay within those lines. You may be intrigued to tell someone in engineering that maybe you should be doing this, but if you're managing production, it's not really my job or my team's job to say what they're doing wrong. Bring it up to their manager. This is what I think maybe you should look at doing. Maybe that's an option. And then I do every morning. I'm not suggesting you do what I do, but I'm going to give you what I do in the morning. Between 8:30 and 9:30, I set aside a half an hour every day for my own professional development. That may be reading an article on LinkedIn. It may be reading a email subscription I subscribe to for production trends in the industry. It may be something to do with engineering, structural, electrical, or otherwise. Set aside that time for yourself to better yourself each morning. It only takes a half hour. And then you move on for your other things. Yeah.
The panel here touched on a lot of the things I was going to bring up. I don't think it's a big secret on the skill sets I think that you need. I think a big one for me is being organized. If you're in a management position, you've got people that you're responsible for, and you have people that you answer to as well. You've got their priority. You've got the people that you're responsible for. They have a set of priorities, and then the people that you answer for, they have a different set of priorities. So you're somewhat caught in the middle at times. So you need to evaluate sort of what's the biggest issue. What do you need to focus on the most? So I think it's important. And Dan mentioned about making lists. I have a book here. It goes with me everywhere. I write everything down because I can't. It's just impossible for me to remember everything. And I start each day with either modifying the list I had the day before. I'll cross out things when they're done. It is an ongoing living list. If I lost this book, I would be in a lot of trouble. So it's one of those things that it's very, very important. I found it just a good tool for me. I need to write stuff down. It's important to have a good work ethic. Brian mentioned about, you can't ask somebody to do something that you're not willing to do yourself. And I think you can lead by example by setting the standard about what it is to put in a full day's worth of work, go the extra mile regularly, and I think the staff that you're working with will respond in accordance. So another thing, communication is another huge one that Brian also mentioned too, is when we do postmortems on projects and we try to figure out, what went wrong. 95% of the time, there was a breakdown in communication somewheres. So communication is absolutely key. But I think the communication aspect of it, it's a two-part contract, if you will. You're trying to communicate something to someone, but you have to be a good listener too. That's the part of it too, is you're communicating something to somebody, they have to be receptive, and they have to understand it. So it is, you're putting something out there, it has to be received properly for it to be actually considered communication. So I don't want people to forget that aspect of it as well. So, and then another big thing I think is empathy, that Dan touched on too, is, have an understanding of the people that you're working with and what they're going through in their personal lives. Because, you maybe had an expectation that somebody was going to deliver something to you at a certain date, but things happened. Their schedules may have changed, their priorities changed, they had a family incident. There's a lot of stuff that people have going on in their lives that if you were a little bit more aware of that and had a little bit of empathy, then I think that it's much easier for everyone to sort of work together and say, I recognize you need some help right now. How can I help you? Kind of thing. So again, I think empathy also goes a long way as well. So.
Okay, thank you. That was so helpful, guys. So we'll move down to question 7 now. What do you like about your work? What do you dislike about it? And what do you find the most challenging? So, Dianne, if we'll start with you, if that's okay.
What I like about my work, I think you figured out by now, I've had a bit of a diverse career, and learning from all of us, I think there's a lot of it that we like. I think what we don't like is certainly the challenges. In my hospitality career, in my own event management career, working with people, and where I am now, it's the customers. I've actually created a workshop that I deliver sometimes. I did for a veterinarian clinic that opened up, and they asked me if I could come in and talk about customer service. And I said, why did you pick me? Because I knew this guy from my background. And he said, because you just are customer service. You know how to deliver it. You know how to make people smile. You know how to make people happy. And I appreciated that. So I thought, how do I deliver that to someone? How do you teach customer service? So I went on their website and kind of got to get to know them a little bit more. I don't know if you heard about Dr. Barry's veterinary burns clinic in Burnside. He also volunteers with Hope for Wildlife, so it's an amazing organization. So customer service, I said to them, you're always going to get conflicts with customer service. And what I've discovered, I wasn't always like this, and Nathan talked about it, listening more, very important. When you listen, you get to develop what they're looking for. Ask open-ended questions. You get to understand what their needs are. For example, if I ask you a question, can I ask you a question? So when do you go to Halifax? Would you like a hotel that has a good rate?
Absolutely.
I'm going to ask another question. What are you looking for in a hotel?
Comfort, respect, and to be treated like I belong there.
So you see the difference in those questions? I got more out of the second question because I allowed her to think about her needs. So therefore I gained information. So I think that's kind of how I developed, and this was through training and education, management and professional selling programs that I've been through and workshops. I've learned that customers also give me rewards. So I think that's what I like. And in my current role, what's not to like about food? So everything's trending right now with food. I work alongside of a dietitian who's very knowledgeable. I learn from her. I have the most amazing staff. You hear a lot of things about young people. Oh, they don't have the work ethic. They're not like we used to be. I hear that a lot, and I have to defy it because it's my experience. My team run from 17 to 60, and they all have the same work ethic. So I kind of have to defy that. So for me, I think customer service, it gives me the most rewards, and then we give it back. So I'm sorry if I went on too long, but I think that's important to know that.
I love every day I go to work, and I think what I like the most about it is technology and how much it's changed since, in my 18 years doing live broadcast production. I went from receiving national advertising from Pepsi on super VHS tape that I would put into a VHS deck, send it from here, record on a hard drive, and that's how I would display it to the old Jumbotron. Now it's hybrid archive storage, cloud-based storage that I just go into an area, click and drag, and then it's ready to go. Effectively, if tonight's Hurricanes basketball game, if their team is late getting me a spot, it could be a text, and I could have the spot ready to go in 5 seconds, which is crazy to think about. I mean, you look at hard drive storage over the years. I mean, you used to get a thumb drive about this big, and you'd have 256 megs. Now they're 250 gigs. It's just amazing how much the technology has grown and really made my life and the life of all producers in broadcast easier. I like if we have a fantastic replay of a crazy three-pointer or dunk or a lacrosse type goal or a lacrosse shot or something like that, and I get calls from ESPN, TSN, Sportsnet. They really want to put that in their top 10. That really excites me. So I have contacts in all those areas, and we'll flip them via our hybrid archive cloud-based storage in 5 minutes, and that might be seen on national TV. That really excites me. I love every day I go to work, and what's challenging about my job is the days can be long. We mentioned the World Junior Hockey Championships. I did that back in 2002-03. I worked 106 hours one week. So that's challenging and it's tiring. I mean, you're there early in the morning. You're not leaving until early the next morning sometimes, and it's hard on. Fortunately, back then I wasn't married, but if I was, I probably wouldn't be married still today. So that's challenging, and you really can get burned out. But you make it work, and if you're passionate enough about it, you certainly make it work. My business is always changing. They say in TV, if you steal one idea, it's theft. If you steal more than one, it's research and development. So I'm always looking at what other venues are doing. I'm part of a network that does my job for the NFL, NBA, NHL, and Major League Baseball. And we're always sharing ideas. You may see a similar jumbotron feature at a Washington Nationals baseball game that you would see at Scotiabank Centre, or you would see at Scotiabank Arena in Toronto. It's because we're always sharing ideas. We may not be doing the exact same thing, but we're doing similar things. An idea could be a deviation from a kiss cam thing. If you don't know what that is, you've probably seen it. We've got 9 broadcast cameras that randomly shoot people, and we have a graphic that goes around them, and we try to make them kiss. It's just a cheeky thing that people seem to love. But there may be a certain spin on it that the Nationals do that we do differently, and then we try it out and make it work.
What do I like? What do I don't like? That's a double-edged sword for just about everything. I mean, there are pluses and minuses to everything. I mean, I love the people I work with, but there's times I need to get a break from the people I work with. I love traveling for my job, but I'm away from home. I don't like being away from home for my family. I love trying new things, learning new things. Or something comes out at work that we have to change the way we were doing it before, and I'm annoyed that I like the old way. Why do I have to change it? So there's so many pluses and minuses for your job, and you know, I guess if it definitely keeps things interesting. Technology is a huge thing. I love technology. I can work from home if I need to. Sometimes I have to work from home and be away from not spend time with my family. So I think that's just the way that the world is. Like, nothing is just sort of black and white. It's just going to be a collection of pluses and minuses, and you've got to figure out a way to navigate through them.
I think one of the things that I like the most, or the thing that I get the most pleasure from, is development of people. I think when you see new people come into your organization and you work with them, and they really do. You build up that reputation with them, or that relationship with them, and you see them do things on their own and do things that maybe 6 months ago they wouldn't have had the confidence to do. I think that's the part of my job that I like the most. I like solving things, and I like it when they don't come back at us again. I like it when something is fixed and the roof is new and it won't leak the following winter or whatever. I mean, that sounds simple, but there will be another roof that leaks. I mean, there always is. But I love the fact that we've gone at something, we've fixed it, and it's better. And I'd say the areas where I get most frustrated or dislike is when, on poor quality. People who, push something along but don't really solve it. They bill you for something, and yet, you find out that 20% of the job wasn't finished or something like that. I get fairly frustrated with that, and many times they know that we're frustrated. We do pay our bills quickly, and we do pay for things, and sometimes you might get me on this one, but you're not getting me on the next job, kind of thing, that sort of thing. I don't hold a grudge, but I never forget. So, and I really like the fact that, I've got 4 kids. They're not kids anymore, but I love the fact that I've had the opportunity to have a balanced life. I balance between activities, sports. I'm quite involved with sports and those types of things, but I've had, been successful with watching my kids grow up, and, now they're all through university. But so I take a lot of pleasure in being able to work hard, play, and, see and support my family.
Okay, so I'm going to kind of squish together the last couple questions here, and I just want you guys to give your last quick word of advice for any students here who are possibly thinking about pursuing a management career. And, what advice you want to send them out with, maybe something you wish someone had said to you before you started your career. So I'll start with you, Dani.
Always ask questions. Don't ever be fearful. I was told the worst piece of advice, and you have to understand, for me, I came from a film set, which you've got, 7 different departments working together in unison. It's very interesting to watch. If you ever have the opportunity, whether you're an extra on a show or something, just kind of go soak it in, because you'll never find something more efficient, because you've got a small amount of time to do a lot of work. Anyway, came from a film set, went to the corporate world, and a colleague of mine, I think it was in the first week of me being there, said, "You'll become more senior if you don't ask questions." And it was like, okay. For the longest time, I didn't ask questions, and I wasn't really making any movement, and I wasn't really understanding why. That was the worst piece of advice I ever got. So always ask questions, and don't ever make it feel like, or don't ever think that you're less educated or less in the know because you're asking questions. Because how do you learn? You can't learn unless you ask questions, right? And then everyone, I used to tell my sister back in the day that I just want to have responsibility, and she says, "Well, you have to earn it. No one's just going to give you responsibility." So when you're on the job, be on time, like I mentioned before, be responsible, and ask questions.
I guess if one thing I could leave you with is just be open-minded. All 4 of us have taken diversions throughout our careers, and we are where we are. And you've learned, many different things along the way that you apply today. So, you don't have to have everything figured out, but just do your best, try to learn as much as you can, and don't be afraid to make mistakes. Sometimes you just even need to learn that, well, I've just tried this and I know this is what I don't want to do. So, and that's a learning right there. So don't be afraid to make mistakes. And it's okay to struggle a little bit. I think that's how we learn. But I wish you all good luck and hope that you find fulfilling careers along the way. So.
Mine's almost a carbon copy, really. I would suggest that when you get out of school, you think you've got it all figured out. Don't be too hard on yourself. Take something, work hard at it, be passionate about it, give it your all. If it's not the right thing for you, don't get too flustered about it. Look at what you want to do next. And, I did lifelong learning. So about 10 years, 15 years into my career, I went back to school. As I was working, I took my my CPM. It's a Certified Property Manager's course. It took me about 7 years, and it was a lot of work, but it was good. And I had a plan that I didn't want to do this my whole life. I really liked it in real estate, and maybe that was an area where I wanted to go in the future. So set the stage. And then, about 4 years ago, I said, I want to, in my future, I want to be on a couple of boards. I want to help out. And I have to bring certification to that. And so I took my ICD, which is Institute of Corporate Directors program, which is a program that helps people train to be directors. And it says what you have to look at. But my point here is that you don't have to do those things. But what you have to do is you have to have a plan. And as you look at something and you work, don't think that you're a failure because you started in this. You'll move through different opportunities, and those opportunities sometimes, present themselves. But luck is being prepared when those things happen. And if you're in a situation where you've looked and said, this is something that I want to do, then do things around it that help to get you to that. get experience in something that you not normally would have, and so it rounds out your skill set. So I think that's it. But the one piece I would really say to you is don't beat yourself up about, finding the perfect job, doing the perfect thing, keeping up with my Facebook page or whatever. I don't know. You maybe don't even do Facebook anymore. I don't know. But don't be down on yourself, because you are smart people, and you will find that right opportunity. And it might not be your first job, might not be your second job, but your career is long. I've worked 35, 37 years, and I'm still learning, and I'm still trying to prepare for what tomorrow brings. So don't be too hard on yourself.
Well, I'll just say I learned a lot as well today with my fellow panelists, so thank you for that. And I'm going to focus on my recent experience, and for me, I want you to think about self-care. We all put everything into our job, whether we're learning, we're delivering, we're executing, or we're doing anything. Don't forget self-care. I've learned that, and I've learned it in a hard way. So self-care is very important. We give compassion to others. Don't forget self-compassion. This is the part about balance that we talked about. And of course, the old adage, lead by example. And I think we've all given some great examples here today. And I'll end with a gift my mother gave me. It was a fridge magnet. And it says, be the kind of person that your dog thinks you are. One of my favorite gifts. So thank you.
Thank you so much, panelists. Let's give a round of applause. That was absolutely amazing. So now, for our students, we have a couple minutes if anyone would like to ask any questions. Okay, I'm coming.
Hi, my name is Robin. I'm a third-year management and tourism student. So I guess just about on the topic of self-care, how do you guys balance the kind of always on, always available as a manager, but also being a person kind of, and having your own time to yourself, but also, it would only take 2 minutes to answer. Do you do it, or do you have an off time, or how do you balance that?
Because you asked about self-care, as a manager, and I think we've touched on it, delegate. Delegate to the right people. Something I've learned I didn't do well, but as I evolved, I did much better. And that's where I was able to give the self-care. Hope that answers.
Yeah, and couldn't be more bang on. If I didn't delegate in my career, I wouldn't have been able to find the work-life balance. I've got 2 kids, 13 and 10. I wouldn't have been able to see my kids go through hockey, basketball, the sporting events they do. So I recognized pretty early on that if I didn't delegate some of my responsibility to my team, then the expectation was that I'm there all the time for every event. And I was for the first 5 years of my career, and it was it was taxing. So delegate and having the confidence in your colleagues to take over for some of the things that you normally would do. And believe it or not, it happens, and you'll have more success than you think. And you'll never know until you try. So delegating is very huge. Yeah.
I think that you have to schedule your calendar, and you have to say that you're going to do those things, and you're going to have to do them. But people have a lot of time, and you have to have that motivation to get up off the couch and not watch the boob tube and go and go to the gym or play water polo on Thursday nights or do whatever. I mean, those are the things. I was 52 and I was still playing Masters water polo. So those are things that you have to do for yourself. I think it makes you a better person. I think it makes you a better manager. I did take a leadership course one time, and it talked to me about, I took away from it about moving the paper walls of management. And what you do is you hire a new employee, and then what you do is you move that paper wall, you give them more and more responsibility. So to the delegation part, it's much more satisfying for them. It's much more satisfying for you. And I'm moving them into part of my duties. Nobody's doing my duties above me. So if I'm not doing the ones over here, nobody else is doing them. But they can help moving that, and that is really good for them for developmental and for their experience and for how they feel they're moving the yardstick for the organization. So it takes discipline and good, great people to work with.
Yeah, I'll just add to that quickly. Life balance. We all have families. Our jobs are busy. It's really finding that right balance. But at the end of the day, you need to find time to go to the gym. You need to find time to eat right. You need to find time to get enough sleep. I mean, once those things start to go to the wayside, everything else starts to fall apart as well too. So everyone's going to be different, but you need to find out sort of what works for you, I guess.
Thank you for that question. Does anybody have any others? No? Okay, well, let's give another round of applause for our amazing panelists. That was so interesting, so helpful.